They say when you die, your whole life flashes before your eyes. For me, it was just one moment, one scene, one memory that burned hotter than the flames consuming the funeral pyre. I saw them, hand in hand, standing side by side. My husband, Yi-chun, and my sister, Lee Ayuo. They weren't hiding anymore. No secrets, no shame. They were officially married. The entire city came to celebrate the brilliant inventor and his stunning bride, while my ashes were still warm. How did it come to this? I whispered as darkness closed in around me. I had given him everything, every penny, every ounce of energy, every dream I shelved for his. I was the one who believed in Yi-chun when everyone else mocked his wild inventions. When our family sneered at his poverty, I stood between them like a shield. I worked 2 jobs to keep the lights on in his tiny studio. I sold my jewelry to buy him parts for his prototype. I lied to myself every day just to keep going. And in the end, he left me to die in a burning warehouse. A tragic accident, they called it. And no one questioned why I was there alone. Why the cameras at the lab were mysteriously turned off that night. Why Yi-chun and Lee Ayuo rushed to hold their wedding just 3 weeks after my funeral. They moved on, while I was reduced to a few lines in the obituary section of the paper. But fate wasn't done with me yet. I woke up screaming, my lungs filled with air. My hands clutched the silk sheets of my childhood bed. The familiar smell of lavender and rose water filled the room. I bolted upright and looked around, heart pounding. The calendar on the desk caught my eye. It was 5 years ago. My fingers trembled as I picked up my old phone. The time, the date, the background image, everything matched. I was back. Back before the wedding. Back before the betrayal. Back when Yi-chun was still the quiet, unknown dreamer sitting in our backyard, scribbling designs on scraps of paper. And back when Lee Ayuo still wore her fake smile like a crown. I stood before the mirror, staring at my own reflection. My face rounder, softer. No stress lines. No exhaustion. My skin was smooth, untouched by heartbreak. I had been reborn, and this time, I wouldn't waste it. No more sacrifices. No more playing the good daughter or the devoted wife. This time, I would live for me. I stepped out of my room and found myself face to face with my mother. There you are, Shinyi, she said sharply. Don't forget, your aunt is coming over to talk about Yi-chun. He's such a good boy. Your sister said he's about to strike it big with some smart tech nonsense. I clenched my fists. She had always been more interested in Yi-chun's potential than my pain. I'm not marrying Yi-chun, I said flatly. She blinked. What did you say? You heard me. I turned on my heel and walked away. I could hear her calling after me, but I didn't stop. I knew what came next. If I didn't act fast, they'd push the same path again. I had to rewrite my destiny. Now, later that night, I sat alone in a quiet CAF. This place. This was where Yi-chun and I had our first date. Where I gave him my savings to fund his first prototype. But tonight, I wasn't here for him. I was here for me. The waiter came over. Miss Lee, someone booked this table already. Would you mind? I'll only be 5 more minutes. I smiled sweetly. Suddenly, I felt a presence behind me. A faint scent of expensive cologne. A cool breeze as someone pulled the chair across from me. Didn't expect someone to occupy my seat. A voice drawled lazily. I looked up and there he was. El Yuzayan, the infamous rich playboy, the tabloid favorite, son of a powerful business family. In my past life, I never gave him a second thought. He was a reckless flirt, a walking scandal. But now, he might just be the wild card I needed. He raised an eyebrow. You're not afraid of me? No, I replied calmly. Should I be? He grinned. Interesting. Most girls either giggle or run. Well, I'm not most girls. He leaned forward, eyes gleaming with curiosity. I can see that. In the corner of my eye, I saw Lee Ayuo enter the CAF. Her expression froze the moment she saw us. Her lips parted in surprise, in disbelief. Perfect. Let the game begin. Lee Ayuo stood at the entrance, her perfectly painted lips slightly parted. In her hands, she clutched her designer purse, the one Yichun bought her using my money. In my past life, she wasn't supposed to see me with Lu Ziyan. Not yet. But fate seemed eager to toss fire on dry grass. Xingyue, she called out, forcing a sweet tone into her voice. What a coincidence. I turned, slowly, letting her take in the full view, me sitting across from the most scandalous man in the city. Her expression twitched ever so slightly. Are you? I said, waving lightly. You know Mr. Lu, right? Lu Ziyan raised his glass lazily. We've met. You were at that awful charity auction, weren't you? The one where I accidentally bought 3 antique vases I didn't want. Lu Ayuo laughed, clearly uncomfortable. Yes, small world. She turned to me. What are you doing with him? I sipped my tea, just talking. Why? Her mask cracked again. In her mind, I was still the obedient older sister, the naive girl who fell for Yichun, who was always careful, polite, predictable. Sitting with someone like Lu Ziyan wasn't just a shock, it was a threat. She composed herself quickly. I just didn't expect you to mix. I've changed, I said, looking her dead in the eye. A lot. Later that night, I sat in my room replaying the moment. Her face, her hesitation, her panic. In my previous life, Lee Ayuo had played the long game. She didn't steal Yichun outright. She poisoned his heart, drop by drop, twisting his perception of me, feeding him whispers of my ungratefulness, my lack of support. She fed his ego until he forgot who held his dreams together. Not this time. This time, I beat her at her own game. And Lu Ziyan, he was more than just a decoy. He was a sword no one saw coming. The next morning, I received a message from Lee Ayuo. Sis, I'm worried about you. That man isn't serious about anyone. You deserve someone stable like Yichun. How generous of her, trying to steer me toward the man she was secretly coveting. I smirked and typed back, thank you for your concern. But stability is boring. I'm having fun for once. She didn't reply. 2 days later, I saw Yichun again. It was at a local tech conference. In this timeline, he was still relatively unknown. Just another amateur developer trying to get someone to invest in his smart home designs. He spotted me through the crowd, eyes lighting up. Back then, he still loved me, or rather, loved what I could give. Xingyue, he called, walking over. I didn't expect you here. I nodded politely. I'm supporting a friend's startup. He smiled sheepishly. I've been making progress. I finally got that energy efficient sensor working. In my past life, I would have clung to those words like oxygen, praised him, encouraged him, offered money. Now, I simply said, I'm sure you'll figure it out. He blinked. That's it. What else is there? I asked, tilting my head. You're the genius, aren't you? His expression flickered with confusion. He was used to my blind belief in him. The sudden coolness unnerved him. Then, as if rehearsed, he asked the question he had no business asking. I heard you were seen with Lucian. Is that true? I gave a soft laugh. Wow, that was fast. Your girlfriend must be worried I'll steal the spotlight. He stiffened. She's not mine, not yet, I interrupted. But soon, right? I mean, you're ambitious. She's from a wealthy family. Makes sense. Yi-Chen looked lost, off balance. Good. I walked away before he could gather his thoughts. That night, Lucian texted me, Xian, dinner tomorrow. You still owe me a real conversation. And you're buying me, you assume I say yes. Xian, you didn't say no. I couldn't help but smile. He was dangerous. Yes, but not in the way Liao thought. He wasn't the reckless monster the media portrayed. He was clever, curious, maybe even lonely. And I wasn't afraid of him. The next day, I met Lucian at an upscale restaurant overlooking the city. It was all sleek marble, glittering chandeliers, and quiet piano music. He pulled out my chair with exaggerated grace. So, Miss Lee, why me? Because you're exactly the kind of man my sister would think is my ruin, I replied coolly. He laughed, delighted. Honesty. I like that. Don't, I said. I'm not here to play games. I don't want your heart, just your name. He arched an eyebrow. You want me to pretend we're dating? For now, long enough to confuse her. Maybe make some noise. He leaned back, sipping his wine. What do I get? My company, I said simply. And entertainment. You're bored, aren't you? He stared at me, as if trying to peel back my layers. Then smiled. I accept. And just like that, the first move was made. The board was set. Let's play. The rumors spread like wildfire. Did you hear? Li Xinyue and Lu Xian are dating. The Lu family's heir. No way. Isn't she the quiet one who used to follow Yi-Chen everywhere? She upgraded big time, and just like that, I became the center of attention. For once, not for being pitiful, but powerful, desirable, unpredictable. Exactly the opposite of what Liao wanted me to be. She showed up at my apartment uninvited 3 days later. Her fake smile was polished, her eyes sharp. Xinyue, she said sweetly, stepping inside without asking. You've changed so much. Thanks, I said, offering her tea I had no intention of pouring. Change is good. She didn't sit. Instead, she paced slowly, looking around. Are you really seeing Lucian? Or is this some silly drama you're playing for attention? There it was, the insult dressed as concern. I leaned back. What if I am? Her lips twitched. You know what they say about men like him. He'll chew you up and spit you out. I smiled politely. And what do they say about women who marry their sister's future husband? That hit her. Her face froze for half a second. You're being dramatic, she said quietly. Yi-Chen cares about you. I stood and walked to the window, watching traffic below. Caring isn't enough. I cared once. Look where that got me. Liao didn't respond. She didn't have to. She was seething inside. I could feel it radiating off her. Before she left, she turned and said, just don't come crying to me when he breaks your heart. I met her gaze evenly. You won't be the one I cry to. You never were. That weekend, Lucian and I attended a charity gala together. We arrived arm in arm, cameras flashing. I wore a sleek navy gown with an open back. He looked devastatingly sharp in a black tuxedo, his hair casually tousled like he'd just rolled out of bed in silk sheets. The whispers started the moment we entered. I smiled through it all. So did he. We were fire and ice, equal parts chaos and calm. We posed for photos, laughed loudly, clinked glasses. But beneath it all, we were actors. In a play only we knew the script to. At some point, he leaned toward me and whispered, "If I didn't know better, I'd think you actually like me." I turned to him with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. "You're tolerable," he smirked. "Careful. Keep flattering me like that, and I might fall for you." I rolled my eyes, but a tiny warmth stirred in my chest. I buried it instantly. This was a game, nothing more. The next week, I received a call from Yuchen. "Shinui," he said, hesitant. "Can we meet? Just talk." I paused. In my previous life, I would've dropped everything for him. Now I made him wait 3 days before agreeing. We met at a modest tea house, one of the places we used to frequent before life hardened us. He looked tired, stressed. His hands fidgeted with his cup. "I heard about you and Lucian," he said, quietly. "Is it true?" I stared at him. "Why do you care?" I don't want you getting hurt." I laughed. "That's rich. You're warning me about someone hurting me." He flinched. "I was good to you, Yi-chan. I gave you everything. But you never looked at me the way you look at her." His lips parted, but no words came out. "You chose her," I said. "Even before you realized you had." "That's not fair," he said, his voice low. "You don't know what it was like. The pressure, the expectations." "You're right," I interrupted. "I don't know. I was too busy protecting you from them." He closed his eyes briefly, the weight of guilt visible. "I miss what we had." I leaned in, lowering my voice. "You miss who I was. The woman who sacrificed everything for you. She's gone." Back in the car with Lucian that night, I was quiet. He glanced at me. "Bad date." "Not a date," I muttered. "Just a ghost." He didn't pry. Just drove in silence. At the next red light, he asked, "Do you still love him?" I turned to him. "I don't know what love means anymore. But I know what it doesn't mean, and what's that? Suffering." He nodded slowly, gripping the steering wheel tighter. Fair answer. Later that night, I found myself staring at an old photo album. One where I was smiling beside Yuchen, oblivious to what was brewing behind me. I took a deep breath, shut it, and placed it in the drawer. I was done being haunted. If love came again, it would be on my terms, and maybe, just maybe, it had already knocked once. I thought Yuchen would fade into the background. That, after our last conversation, he'd return to his prototypes and forget about me. I underestimated the power of a bruised ego. Jealousy is strange. It doesn't bloom in neglect, it bursts when what once was easily owned now belongs to someone else, especially someone like Lu Zedyan. Yuchen started calling more often. Sometimes he had excuses. "I found your old book," or "Can I ask your opinion on a project?" Other times he said nothing, just silence on the other end of the line. Like he didn't know why he called, but couldn't stop himself. I stopped answering. Meanwhile, Lucian was changing to Dotty first. He was playful, unpredictable, a whirlwind of charm and smugness. But somewhere between our late-night walks and heated debates over art versus science, the tone shifted. He stopped making flirtatious remarks, started listening more. He noticed the little things, like how I liked my coffee just slightly sweet, or that I always got quiet when we passed bookstores. One night, after a small charity event, we walked under dim golden lights along the riverside. The air was cool, the silence warm. He looked over and asked, "What would you be doing if no one expected anything from you?" The question hit me like lightning. I took a deep breath. I'd open a quiet cafe by the sea, read books all day, Grow herbs on the windowsill. Maybe right. No empires. He teased. No revenge. I said softly. He nodded. Sounds peaceful, and you? He gave a small chuckle. Sleep. Then maybe sleep some more. I laughed. You don't sleep enough now? Not the kind that matters, he said. Voice low. We stopped walking. The breeze caught my hair. He reached up slowly, brushing a strand from my face. His fingers lingered just long enough for the silence to stretch between us. I like being around you, he said. The words were simple, but honest. I looked at him, really looked. Past the expensive suit, the easy smirk, the reputation. There was something behind his eyes. Not longing, not obsession, just presence. Warm, real. I like being around me too, I joked, breaking the tension. He laughed, but the moment didn't disappear. It just softened. A few days later, I received a bouquet of white tulips at work. No note, just flowers. I recognized the message, though. White tulips, forgiveness, regret. Chen. He still didn't get it. It wasn't about forgiveness anymore. It was about choice. And I had made mine. The next morning, I met Lucian for breakfast at a CAF tucked between bookstores downtown. He looked tired. Long night, I asked, sipping my coffee. Board meeting, he muttered. My uncle's trying to sell part of the company to foreign investors. Told him to drop dead. Politely, I chuckled. You know, for a playboy, you're surprisingly responsible. He leaned forward, smirking. For a soft-spoken woman, you're surprisingly deadly. We both laughed. Then he grew serious. Shinui, do you still want to keep this fake? My smile faltered. I wasn't ready for that question. I didn't even know the answer. I don't know, I admitted. I'm still figuring out what's real. He nodded, not pushing, just sitting with me in the moment. That's what set him apart. He didn't chase. He didn't beg. He simply stayed. Later that week, my company had a networking event. It was supposed to be professional, civil, predictable. But then Yi-Chen showed up. He wasn't on the list. He wasn't invited. He found me during the cocktail hour while I was talking with clients. Shinui, he said, voice firm. We need to talk. I stiffened. My clients politely excused themselves, sensing the tension. Yi-Chen stepped closer, eyes burning. What's going on with you and Lucian? Is this some game? Are you trying to punish me? I took a slow breath. What makes you think this has anything to do with you? Because you're not like this. He snapped. You were kind, loyal. You supported me. I was blind. I cut in coldly. I supported a man who let my sister destroy me. He paled. I don't owe you anything, Yi-Chen. Not anymore. But I still. He reached for my hand. A strong arm slid between us. Lucian. He'd come out of nowhere, quiet and calm as ever. But now his presence filled the room like thunder. She said no. He said smoothly. Yi-Chen froze, then stepped back. I looked up at Xian. His eyes were still soft, still watching me. He wasn't just protecting me. He was standing with me, and that made all the difference. Sometimes, the strongest structures fall not from an earthquake but from a hairline crack no one notices until it's too late. That's exactly what started happening to Yi-Chen and Liu. After the scene at my networking event, whispers began spreading. In high circles, in low ones, Yi-Chen had embarrassed himself publicly. In front of his ex-fiancée and Lucian, of all people. People started questioning him. His deals started stalling. Investors grew cautious. And as for Liu, well, She was furious. I didn't need to hear her screams to know it. But I got confirmation anyway. One evening, I received a call. I almost didn't answer, but the number was unfamiliar. Xinyue, came the voice. Breathless. It was Yichen. Please, he said. I need to talk to you. It's important. I should have hung up. I should have ignored it. But curiosity mixed with the satisfaction of seeing karma bloom got the better of me. We met in a quiet public park at dusk. I arrived early, dressed casually, hair tied up, no makeup. He came 5 minutes late, looking like a man unraveling, disheveled, tired, his pride clinging to him like a dying breath. He sat down beside me on the bench and exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for weeks. I'm sorry, he said finally. I didn't speak. I was stupid. I let people manipulate me. I let her manipulate me. Still, I said nothing. He turned toward me, voice cracking. I miss you, Xinyue. That was the line. That was the line I had clung to in my last life. I would have melted, cried, maybe even taken him back. But this time, I just looked at him and asked why. He stared. Why do you miss me? Because your projects are failing. Because your new love isn't supportive. Or because someone else now sees my worth. He flinched like I slapped him. I miss you, he whispered. Because I see it now. What you were. What you gave. I stood. You don't miss me, I said, turning away. You miss the version of me who would have forgiven you. She's gone. Later that night, I found myself outside Lu Xian's apartment. I hadn't planned to visit, but something about confronting Yichen reopened a scar that I hadn't fully acknowledged. Xian opened the door with a half-tied robe and a toothbrush in his mouth. He blinked. Did I forget a date? I shook my head. No, I just needed company. He nodded, stepped aside. No questions, no judgment. We sat on his balcony in silence, watching the city lights dance. Finally, I asked, why haven't you asked about my past? He looked at me. Because it's yours, he said simply. And I figure, when you're ready, you'll tell me. No pressure, no demands, just trust. I stared at him, this man who had started as a prop in my plan and had slowly, carefully become a pillar I leaned on. I was married to him. In another life, I said softly. His brow furrowed slightly, not out of confusion, but as if he understood more than he should. I gave him everything, I continued, and he left me to die. Literally, I was alone in a burning building. They said it was an accident, but I knew she planned it. Xian said nothing, just waited. I woke up 5 years in the past, I whispered, and this time, I wanted revenge. He reached for my hand slowly, gently, but along the way, I said, voice cracking, I found peace. Because of you. For the first time in a long time, I cried, and for the first time in even longer, I wasn't crying alone. The next day, headlines hit. Yetech investor pullout founder's vision called into question. Lu Xian publicly supports new tech project by rising star Li Xinyue. The power shift was public and undeniable. Why Yichen was struggling, and I was rising. But this wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about rebirth, about who I was becoming, about who I was choosing. And the cracks, they were no longer in me. They were in the ones who thought I'd stay broken. For someone like Li Io, control wasn't just power, it was identity. And I had taken that away. She thought she had me figured out, a dull, obedient sister whose only talent was enduring mistreatment. But now, she couldn't keep up, and she was unraveling faster than Yichen's failing company. The calls started fast. Shinui, let's talk just the two of us. I think we've had misunderstandings. Why are you doing this to our family? You know he doesn't really care about you. You're just a toy to him. I didn't answer. Not a single call. Not a single message. And silence, I've learned, is the loudest scream. But Lee Hyo wasn't the type to stop at calls. She made her next move at a public charity banquet, the kind that makes headlines, where business elites and politicians mingle over overpriced wine and cold canapés. I came arm in arm with Liu Ziyan. As always, he was calm, confident, the perfect gentleman with a hint of rebellion. I wore crimson silk, sharp eyeliner, and a smile that made whispers swirl as we entered. And there she was, Liuo, standing beside Yichin like a porcelain doll barely holding itself together. Her eyes locked on me, dark and calculating. As soon as Ziyan stepped away to speak with an investor, she slid beside me. You think you've won, she hissed under her breath. But he'll get bored of you, just like every woman before. I sipped my champagne. Maybe. But at least I didn't marry someone I had to steal. Her jaw twitched. You're not even that special, Shinui, she whispered, venom slipping through her teeth. You're just lucky. You don't have the ruthlessness to keep what you have. I smiled, slow and sharp. You're wrong, I said, eyes glittering. You mistook my kindness for weakness. I was never the fragile one. You just never tested how far I could bend before I snapped. I walked away before she could respond. From the corner of my eye, I saw her fingers clutch her wine glass until her knuckles turned white. The next morning, my team at the company discovered it. A smear campaign, anonymous blogs and social media posts suddenly accusing me of sleeping my way into deals, sabotaging Yichen's work, manipulating Z. Nyan.it was sloppily done, but damaging nonetheless, and I knew exactly where it came from. Ziyan called me as soon as he saw the reports. You okay? He asked, voice low and calm. Yes, I replied, but I want it handled. He was quiet for a second. Then, you sure you don't want to disappear and let me burn it down for you? I smiled despite everything. No, I want her to know it was me. We held a press conference that same week. In it, I calmly presented hard evidence of forged accounts, paid trolls, and IP addresses traced to Liru's assistant. I didn't mention her name. I didn't need to. The press connected the dots. For me, Liu Ziyan stood beside me the entire time, not as my protector, but as my equal. You don't look nervous, he said later, as the room emptied out. I'm not. He watched me for a long moment, then said, You're not like I expected. You're not either. There was a pause. Then, softly, I like who we are when we're together. I looked up at him, really looked. No masks, no games. I do too. That night, Liuo made one final mistake. She showed up at my apartment building, soaked from the rain, makeup ruined, and pride crumbling. Please, she begged. Stop. You've taken everything. What more do you want? I stepped outside, calm as ever. I want you to feel it, I said. What it's like to be betrayed, replaced, forgotten. Her eyes filled with tears. I didn't mean for it to go that far. But it did, I said. You didn't just want what I had. You wanted me gone. I was scared, she whispered. You were always so loved, so stable. I had to fight for everything, and you still lost. She stared at me, defeated. I don't hate you anymore. I added softly. Because hating you would mean you matter. I turned and walked back inside. The game was over, but the story was still being written. And for once, I wasn't surviving someone else's script. I was writing my own. The media storm had died down. Liu had vanished from the spotlight. Her reputation crippled. Her influence shattered. Yi Chun's startup, once hailed as the next big thing, had lost nearly all its backers. No one wanted to fund a man whose brilliance only bloomed in another woman's shadow, and me. I had never been more free. No more ghosts. No more apologies. Just purpose and a man who saw me for who I was becoming, not who I had been forced to be. But life has a strange way of testing you the moment you feel safe. It was a quiet Tuesday morning when the call came. Miss Lee, this is Officer Chen. We need you to come to the station. It's regarding Mr. Yi Chun. My breath caught. What happened? There's been a complaint. We need your statement. I drove there alone, hands gripping the steering wheel tighter than necessary. When I arrived, the officer took me to a private room. Apparently, Yi Chun had been caught tampering with company servers, specifically mine. He'd tried to access files, investor information, and internal finances. Security footage showed him lurking outside our office 2 nights earlier, using an old passcode. He hadn't just fallen, he was spiraling. Did you press charges? I asked. The officer hesitated. He's being held. But if you wish to drop it, we can let him off with a warning. I looked at the file on the desk. His name, his face, the man I once loved. The man I once trusted more than anyone. No, I said calmly. Let the law take its course. It wasn't revenge. It was accountability. That night, Ziyan and I sat in his office. Lights dimmed, classical music playing softly in the background. He poured us both a drink. He was quiet. Say it, I said finally, sensing the storm behind his stillness. He turned to me, eyes steady. Are you okay? Yes. He didn't believe me. You cared about him, he said. I did, I admitted. But I cared more about who I was when I was with him. The version of me that didn't believe I deserved better. Ziyan swirled the drink in his glass. And who are you now? I looked him dead in the eyes. Someone who knows exactly what she wants. His lips curled into a small smile. And what's that? I didn't answer right away, because I was still figuring it out. But I knew one thing: he was part of it. The next few days passed in a blur of meetings, strategy sessions, and small, quiet moments with Ziyan that felt more intimate than any candlelit dinner. He no longer flirted. He no longer teased. He just stayed. Whether I was quiet or sarcastic, tired or angry, he stayed. And slowly, I began to understand something terrifying. I had fallen for him. But just as I was ready to tell him, he beat me to it. It was raining again. The kind of rain that makes the city smell like earth and electric wires. We stood on the rooftop of his apartment building, watching the sky open up. You know, he said, voice calm, this started as a joke to everyone. They all thought it was just a phase, me chasing the quiet Lee daughter. But it wasn't. I turned toward him. I didn't think I'd fall for you, he said. But I did. The rain was cold, but my chest felt warm. He stepped closer and, I know you're still healing. I'm not asking for anything right now. I just needed you to know. I stared at him, this man who once only existed in headlines, now bearing his heart to me under a storm. I am still healing, I said honestly. But I think, I added, I'm ready to see what comes next. He took my hand, and for the first time since being reborn, I wasn't just surviving. I was choosing. The past no longer owned me. The pain no longer defined me. Love no longer scared me. I wasn't the same girl who died in a fire built by betrayal. I was the woman who walked through it and came out glowing. The heart is strange. It can survive betrayal, humiliation, even death. But when it comes to love, real, pure love, it trembles like it's facing the sharpest blade. And that's exactly what happened next. Not because of Yi-Chen, not because of Li Ruo, but because of Zayan's family. It began with a phone call. I was at the office reviewing a pitch deck when his assistant knocked on my door. Face pale, "Miss Li, Chairman Liu has summoned you." I blinked. Chairman Liu, as in Zayan's father. She nodded. The next hour passed in a fog. I was chauffeured to the Liu family estate, a vast palace of glass and steel, cold and commanding. The kind of place where deals were made and lives were broken. They escorted me to a study with towering bookshelves and a view of the city so high it looked like a toy. He sat behind an obsidian desk. Chairman Liu, powerful, calculated, every inch the tycoon. "Miss Li," he said, steepling his fingers. "Let's talk about your future." It wasn't a request. He didn't yell. He didn't threaten. He offered a blank check, a luxury villa, a management position at a powerful international branch. Everything I had once dreamed of stacked before me like golden shackles. "Leave Xian," he said quietly. "He's serious about you, which makes you a problem." I stared. I won't have my son throw his legacy away for a woman chasing vengeance. I smiled slowly. "I'm not chasing vengeance. I've already caught it." That made him pause. Then I stood. "I came here for one reason," I said. "Meeting his eyes. To see what kind of man raised the one I love." I walked to the door. And now I understand why Ziyan became the opposite. I left before he could speak again. I didn't tell Ziyan at first, not because I was afraid but because I didn't want to test him. But he found out anyway. He showed up at my apartment that night, storm in his eyes. "You should have told me," he said. "I didn't want to put you in that position." "You didn't put me in anything," he snapped. "They did." I watched him pace the living room, torn between fury and guilt. Then he stopped. "You're not going anywhere," he said quietly. "I won't let him buy you out of my life." My throat tightened. "I don't want to be the reason you lose your family," I whispered. He stepped forward. "You're the reason I found something real. Let them go if I have to." I stared at him, heart pounding. This wasn't about rebellion anymore. It was about us. But the war was far from over. The next day, an anonymous tip accused me of embezzlement. I was pulled into internal audits, investigations, fake documents, another smear campaign. But far more dangerous, this wasn't Li Ruo. This was his father. And this time, it wasn't just about my reputation, it was about destroying everything I had built. Ziyan called an emergency board meeting. In it, he presented hard proof, time-stamped footage, digital forensics, and whistleblower testimony from someone inside his father's own company. The room was silent when he finished. Then he said, voice even and sharp, "If this board stands by corruption over character, then I walk." He left the room without waiting for approval. He chose me in front of everyone. Later that night, as we stood on the rooftop again, he held my hand tighter than ever. "I've walked away from a lot of things," he said. "Money, influence, power. But walking away from you, that's the only thing that would make me a failure." I looked up at him, tears in my eyes. "I was reborn once," I said. "But now, I think I'm finally alive." He leaned down, and this time, the kiss wasn't for show. It was a beginning. Love and revenge are often confused. But there comes a moment, a silent, soul-stirring moment when you realize the difference. That moment came on the morning Lee Iuo collapsed at my office door. She looked nothing like the woman who once draped herself in silk and smugness. Her makeup was smeared, her eyes sunken, and her voice, usually so sharp, was a faint whisper. "I have no one left," she said. I stood frozen. My employees stared from their desks, but no one dared move. I brought her into my office. She trembled as she spoke, hands clutched tightly in her lap. "Yichen's gone. After the charges, his company pulled out. He disappeared. He left me. Said I ruined everything. I said nothing. I tried to keep up. I tried to be you. But I couldn't," she whispered. "I never had what you had. And what do you think I had, Iuo?" I asked quietly. She looked up, eyes desperate. "People loved you. They chose you. No one ever chose me unless I stole them first." It was the first honest thing she'd said in years. "I hated you for it," she said, tears spilling now. "But I hated myself more. There was a time I would have screamed, thrown her out, demanded she suffer like I did. But now I just felt tired and strangely at peace. "I forgive you," I said. She blinked, stunned. "Not for your sake, for mine." That night, I sat with Zigan on his apartment balcony, sipping tea instead of wine, wearing an old hoodie instead of designer silk. I told him everything. The fire, the betrayal, the loneliness. He listened, fully, completely. No interruptions, no questions. And when I finished, he said only one thing: "I wish I could have met that version of you, so I could have pulled her out of the fire myself." I cried, not because I was broken, but because I was whole. A few weeks later, Yichen reappeared, not as a villain, but as a man utterly defeated. He met me at a CAF, unshaven and hunched over. "I came to say goodbye," he said, voice hoarse. I didn't speak. "I ruined it all," he continued. "Not just my company, not just her, but everything good that ever came into my life." He looked up, eyes bloodshot. "I blamed you for not saving me. But it was never your job." "No," I said. "It wasn't." He nodded. "I hope he treats you better than I ever could." "He already does." He stood, paused, then added, "You were the best thing that ever happened to me." I just realized too late. And with that, he walked away, this time for good. I watched him disappear into the street. No hate in my heart, only a quiet understanding. Some people are meant to teach us how to survive pain. Others show us how to rise from it. Weeks turned into months. Ziyan launched his own foundation helping women entrepreneurs reclaim their dreams. He asked me to be its CEO director. We worked side by side, not as a power couple, not as business allies, but as two people who had chosen each other when the world offered every reason not to. We visited the sea one weekend, a tiny town with white buildings, blue shutters, and a bookstore that smelled like dust and lavender. I bought a journal, sat by the window, and wrote the first line of a story, not about revenge, not about tragedy, but about love, real, patient, unexpected love. The dawn breaks quietly, but its light is fierce. It spills across the sky in shades of pink and gold, like a promise that no matter how dark the night, morning always comes. That morning, I woke not as the girl burned by betrayal, but as the woman forged in its flames. I stood on the balcony of our little seaside home, Ziyan beside me. The salty breeze tangled my hair. The horizon stretched endlessly, an open book waiting to be written. He reached for my hand, ready for the next chapter. he asked, voice soft. I smiled, squeezing his fingers. Yes. Months passed. Our foundation flourished, uplifting women with dreams as fierce as mine once were. I wrote my story, not as a victim, but as a survivor, a phoenix rising, time and again, and sometimes, late at night, when the world quieted, I thought of you, Chen, and Li Ayu. Not with hatred, not with regret, but with understanding. They were chapters of my past, necessary ones, but no longer my story. One evening, at a book launch, I held the first printed copy of Reborn, From Ashes to Love. The dedication read, "To those who have lost everything and found themselves again." Ziyan kissed my forehead. The crowd applauded, and I realized I wasn't alone. Love is not just the beginning. It's the journey through pain, trust, betrayal, forgiveness, and hope. It's messy and beautiful. It's never perfect, but it's real, and that makes all the difference. I closed the book, stepping out into the warm night air. The stars shimmered above, a reminder that even after the darkest nights, there is light. And I was finally free. Thanks for watching. Hoped you liked it. If you watched till the end, please comment "end" so that we could understand you were with us till the end. As well as, please let us know, where are you watching from? Before leaving, please hit the subscribe button, comment your thought and share with your nearest and dearest one. See you in the next one. Until to the next one, spread love.